This is the Pulsar VCO algorithm on the disting mk4. Pulsar synthesis is a classic computer music technique. It's a little bit akin to granular synthesis. Basically, it involves repeating a waveform called a pulsar at regular intervals, and also controlling the pitch of the individual waveform independently from the fundamental frequency of the sound. Possibly slightly easy to explain on an oscilloscope, which is why I have this here. So just to explain, inputs X and Y are the two pitch inputs. X is the fundamental pitch, Y is the formant pitch. A and B are two outputs, which are going into this Mordax data for visualization. At the moment, the two outputs are the same, but later they won't be, so that's why we've got two of them. So if I change the input pitches, that's the fundamental pitch, that's the formant pitch. So what you can see is happening is that if you change the formant pitch, the overall frequency of repetition is unchanged, but the waveform inside the wave, as it were, gets faster and slower. If you change the formant pitch, the waveforms get closer together if you raise it, and further apart if you lower the pitch, but the actual waveform inside the waveform, as it were, stays the same. So it's a little bit like PWM modulation, but with an arbitrary waveform. It's a little bit like vocal synthesis using formants, in that you don't get that kind of Munchkinization sound when you raise or lower the pitch. So technically how this is working on the disting is that it's using the wavetables the same as are used for the other wavetable, VCOs, LFOs, etc. So I can choose the wave in the wavetable on parameter 1. So you can see there I'm just choosing different waves, which obviously changes the sound in a fairly fundamental manner. Let's just find one with lots of harmonics in it. That'll do. Another part of pulsar synthesis traditionally is the window or the envelope. In this case we're using a rectangular envelope. It's just playing the whole sample as is. If I change that to that's a linear attack, so it's superimposing basically a ramp on each waveform. The same with a decay, and then that's a Gaussian envelope, so basically it's applying a smooth hump on top of each pulsar, which changes the sound and it changes the spectrum, and it also changes how smoothly these things tend to blend together as you mess about with the sound. I'll leave that on Gaussian for now. This parameter Y mode basically couples these two together, so that should you want this effect, you can have basically a more normal pitch control, in that changing the X pitch also changes the Y, so you have independent control of Y as well. But if you compare the sound of doing that, which is what normally happens when you pitch up a VCO, and that everything just gets faster, versus the normal pulsar control of that, it's a different sound. The other control you have here on this parameter is masking. So masking in pulsar synthesis basically knocks out successive pulses under some kind of control, and in the disting, because we've got two outputs, basically once we apply masking, the two outputs are going to be opposite masks. So if I put masking to this mode, this is stochastic masking, which is kind of random. So at the moment you see A is completely masked, B is unmasked. If I change Z, it changes the randomness of which one's masked and which one's not. which sounds like any number of computer music things that I've heard. I don't know about you. The other form of masking we have is burst masking. So that basically is much more, it's not, this is random, burst masking is regular. So basically it takes a certain number of pulsarets given by the parameter, and then Z controls how many of them are masked and how many of them are not. So with 2 it's either one or the other. If I change that to 3, you can see every third one is being masked. It gets more interesting if you change that to a higher number. You kind of get undertones and overtones going on. So that's masking. The last parameter is a simple octave control. So yes, that's pulsar synthesis on the disting mk4. Fiddle with it, fiddle with it. Anyway, play with it yourself.